The lights were off. Not dimmed to off. The living room was colder than it should have been. One of the throw pillows was missing. The key she always left on the side table? Gone. The wine glass she abandoned 3 nights ago still sat by the sink, but the ring, the one she left behind just in case, had moved. Slightly. Just enough to be noticeable. Enough to say I was here. She whispered my name once. Twice. But there was no reply. She stepped inside anyway. Heels clicking, suitcase wheels rattling softly over the hardwood. Outside, the world still looked the same. The same gray sedan parked across the street. The neighbor's porch light flickering. But inside, everything had shifted. It was subtle. Measured. Deliberate. She reached for the hallway light switch. Click. Nothing. The bulb had been unscrewed. The only sound now was the faint whir of the refrigerator and her own breath beginning to change rhythm. Not panic. Not yet. But confusion blooming into the edge of fear. She moved forward. The bedroom door was half open. The air smelled faintly of something burned. Not smoke, just something that had once mattered. On the bed, a single envelope. Her name. In my handwriting. Not Corinne. Not babe. Just C. Inside, for things. A printed photo. A receipt. A house key. A letter. And while she stood there frozen, still in the clothes she'd carefully chosen for the weekend I wasn't supposed to know about, her phone buzzed. Once. Then again. Then silence. If she had opened the messages, she would have seen the screenshot I just sent. A snapshot from her hidden phone. The one she didn't know I'd found. The one I'd cracked open 2 nights ago while she thought I was asleep. She never expected me to act. Not me. Not the quiet one. The forgiver. The overthinker. But I didn't wait. And now the game was no longer hers. Her fingers trembled slightly as she slid the contents out of the envelope. The photo came first. It wasn't graphic. Nothing that could be sent to scandal blogs or make someone blush. It was worse. It was precise. Chilling. A candid snapshot of her sitting in the hotel lounge, not with a friend, not with a group, but with one man. His face slightly turned, but her eyes fixed on him like she hadn't looked at me in years. There was no laughter in the picture. No arms wrapped around each other. Just intensity. A moment caught between implication and confession. She blinked twice. Once to deny it. Once to face it. The receipt followed. 1 King Deluxe, 2 nights, Beverly Orchid Hotel. Room service. Champagne. Late checkout. Her signature at the bottom. No excuses. Not even a clever lie to dig into. Then the key. Our spare. The one she never thought I'd give back. Clean. Cold. Heavy with meaning. And finally, the letter. It wasn't long. I didn't need it to be. I knew she wouldn't want to hear me explain. She'd want to hear me break. She'd want me to plead for answers. But I gave her none of that. I wrote, "You always said you needed clarity. I finally found mine. You can have the silence you chased. The distance you desired. The freedom you craved. I'm not waiting for your version of honesty anymore. This house remembers everything. I don't want it to remember me." She stood there for several minutes. Motionless. I wasn't watching, but I could imagine every twitch in her jaw, every tightening of her grip. She would expect me to burst out from a corner. To ambush her with a lecture. Maybe even cry. Instead, she was greeted by stillness. But the silence wasn't empty. The walls echoed with things I had left behind intentionally, her forgotten bracelet laid on the nightstand, one drawer of her vanity eerily empty, a faint trace of cologne she hadn't smelled on me in weeks. I wanted her to feel what I had felt in her absence, confused, disoriented, irrelevant. And that was before the second envelope arrived. She hadn't noticed it at first. It had been slipped under the front door while she was upstairs reading my words and losing her balance. This envelope wasn't from me. No name. No message. Just a USB drive inside. She plugged it into her laptop out of reflex. Maybe she thought it was something old, vacation footage, or photos from our anniversary trip 3 years ago. Maybe she hoped it would rewrite the reality I'd laid out for her. But no. What played was raw. Short. A hallway camera feed. The hotel she'd stayed in. Clear, quiet footage of her stepping into room 2407 with the man from the photo. No sound. Just motion. Her hand on his chest. His hand on her lower back. The door closing behind them. That was it. 36 seconds of undeniable truth. She slammed the laptop shut. No yelling. No denial. Just a cracked exhale and one muttered word, no. But that was the thing. It didn't matter what she said anymore. She had already said enough in silence, in absence, in every micro moment of betrayal she thought she could contain. She picked up her phone. Called my number. It didn't ring. Didn't go to voicemail. Just, the number you have dialed is no longer in service. She didn't know I had disconnected everything that tied me to her, the phone, the shared bank account, the auto-renewed streaming subscriptions, the gym membership we'd promised we'd start using again. I had unraveled us. And she had no clue where I'd gone. But she'd find out soon. Because some ghosts don't haunt houses. They haunt truth. 3 days before she left, I started preparing. I didn't even know why yet, call it instinct. The way she avoided my eyes when she packed her gym bag, even though she hadn't been to that gym in months. The way her voice sounded slightly too rehearsed when she said, "Don't forget to water the ficus while I'm gone." That damn ficus had been dead for 2 weeks. So I opened a blank document, titled it Contingency, and began typing. I wasn't even sure what I was writing, notes, maybe? But the first line ended up being, "If she goes through with it, don't flinch. Let her finish the lie." She did. Friday afternoon, as soon as her car left the driveway, I sat down with that file and built a plan that I never thought I'd actually use. It wasn't revenge, not even close. I wasn't interested in stooping to her level. I wanted something quieter. Smarter. Something that would stay with her long after her little, new experience faded into regret. First, I called Sylvia. She's my coworker, not in that way. She's in accounting. Keeps to herself. But she knows how to get things done, and fast. She helped me legally freeze the shared credit card we opened last year. Told her I suspected fraud. No questions asked. Then I accessed our cloud drive, the one we never used. Guess who had autosync turned on from her work phone without knowing? That gave me access to screenshots, emails, even calendar invites. And there it was. Weekend Seminar Personal Expansion, Room 2407. It wasn't even a clever cover. The invite came from a personal Gmail. No company listed. The event didn't exist on any search engine. Just a man's name, first name only, and a short note. Bring something you wouldn't wear at home. I leaned back in the chair, staring at that sentence. My throat burned. I think I stayed like that for hours. No music. No talking. Just me, the hum of my laptop, and that sentence on loop in my head. By Saturday morning, I booked my one-way train ticket to a quiet town 2 states over. I sent a deposit on a tiny short-term apartment under a different name. I pulled half the money out of savings. Left her the rest, not because I was generous, but because I wanted her to feel in control, right until she realized she wasn't. She sent me a photo at noon. A plate of sushi. 2 glasses. A caption. "Miss you. Trying something new, smiley face?" I stared at it longer than I should have. Then I texted back. "Glad you're exploring." "So am I." She replied with a heart emoji. She didn't know I was standing in our bedroom doorway when I typed that. Surrounded by boxes. Our wedding photo in one hand. The torn edges of a note she once wrote me in the other, one she didn't know I'd kept all these years even though the ink had faded. I didn't burn anything. I didn't smash a single glass. I wasn't interested in the drama. But I did start recording. Not of her. Of me. A monologue, I guess. A confession. One I never intended to publish, but one I needed to say aloud. I spoke about the way it feels when someone slowly unplugs from you, one excuse at a time. I talked about what it means to be in a marriage where one person starts using words like clarity as code for temporary exit. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. But I did end it with one sentence I knew I'd never get to say to her face. "You left looking for yourself. I stayed and finally found me." That recording was the last thing I played on the Bluetooth speaker before I left the house for good. I left it looping. So when she came home, bags full of secrets and eyes still glossed from whatever fantasy she'd been sold, she didn't find me. She found my voice echoing through every corner of a place that no longer belonged to either of us. And I wasn't done yet. Because when the silence stopped playing, something else started. By the time Corinne walked into the kitchen, her face looked different. Not older, not tired, just hollow. That artificial energy she always carried, the one that turned heads and got her out of arguments, had fizzled into something else. The house didn't match her memory anymore. The shoes by the door were gone. The coat rack stood empty. The air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and finality. She looked around slowly, like she was trying to convince herself this was temporary. That I'd come out of the bedroom in sweatpants, holding a mug, ready to pretend this was all okay. But there was no pretending. Not anymore. On the table sat a simple manila folder. Not dramatic. No confidential stamped across it. No lock. No note. Just a single word written on the front in black marker. Replay. She opened it. Inside was a transcript. A conversation she never knew had been recorded. Her words. His voice. Their laughter. The worst kind, quiet, intimate, careless. The transcript wasn't time-stamped. I wanted her to guess when I'd heard it. I wanted her to question whether the walls had always been listening. It was an audio file a friend had sent me anonymously. A friend who worked at the hotel and recognized my wife from a photo I'd posted years ago. He hadn't meant to get involved. But he also couldn't look away. The conversation wasn't vulgar. It was something far worse. Casual. Familiar. Full of inside jokes and future plans. Mentions of trips. Jokes about me. Him saying, "Does he still fold your towels into those little squares?" And her answering, "Yeah, he thinks it's romantic. I think he watched too many sad husband TikToks." That one hit hard. I used to fold towels for her when she got home late from work. Not because anyone told me to. Not for credit. Just to give her something soft when the world was cold. Something predictable in a life that always felt half-scheduled. She once said, "You're the kind of man I never have to explain anything to." I guess that's why she stopped explaining. The second item in the folder was a USB drive. Unlike the first one, this didn't contain footage or screenshots. It contained something else entirely, a video of me. But not the version she remembered. Not the one who waited quietly at home and flinched every time she pulled away during a kiss. It was a single shot. Me standing on a new balcony. Different city skyline behind me. Hair messier. Face leaner. Holding up a piece of paper with one sentence on it. It's not betrayal that ruins people. It's the belief that they deserved it. I didn't say a word in the clip. I didn't need to. That USB was meant to be the final mirror. The one she couldn't avoid. The reflection of what she lost. Not because I was perfect, I wasn't, but because I was whole. And she broke something that didn't need fixing. The irony? The moment she realized what she'd done wasn't the moment she lost me. It was the moment she remembered who I used to be, and knew she'd never see him again. She tried calling again that night. Not crying. Not shouting. Just a message. "Please, come back. I didn't think you'd actually leave." I didn't reply, because it wasn't about leaving anymore. It was about arriving somewhere she couldn't follow. But I wasn't hiding. She just didn't know where to look. And soon, someone would help her find me. Not because I asked them to, but because she had no idea who else I had already told the truth to. Corinne had always believed she was the smartest person in the room. That's what made her dangerous. She could make you feel like she was telling you the truth, even while crafting a lie so subtle you wouldn't notice the wound until you were already bleeding. She used charm like currency and silence like camouflage. So when she opened her email late that night and saw the subject line, "Did he leave this behind? Or did you?" She probably expected it to be junk. A scam. Another desperate attempt from me to get her attention. But it wasn't from me. It was from Morgan. She wouldn't recognize the name at first. Just a woman's name. Soft, neutral, forgettable. But once she opened the message and saw the attached screenshot, a group photo from our mutual friend's wedding 2 years ago, it clicked. Morgan was my old classmate from before Corinne and I ever met. We reconnected by accident last year through a community writing workshop. Just friends. Always just friends. But Corinne never liked her. Said her voice was too calm. That she sounded like someone who collects regrets and polishes them like stones. Morgan had been around. Not a constant presence. Just someone who observed from the edges. The kind of person who notices what others miss. And the thing about people like her is, they know when something doesn't add up. She reached out to me the night Corinne left for her weekend. Not because I asked. Just because she saw something in my face during our last video call. The hesitation behind my eyes. The way I paused when I said Corinne was on a trip. Morgan didn't press. But she started watching. She was the one who tracked the hotel listing. The one who checked the event registry and found that personal expansion wasn't a real seminar, but a fabricated event title used in private forums for high-end adult retreats. She even emailed the hotel pretending to be a potential guest, and got confirmation that Corinne's reservation was under a fake name, linked to a single guest. No corporate affiliation. Morgan didn't confront me with this. She simply gathered it. Quietly. calmly, intentionally. And after I left, after I erased myself from the house and gave Corinne everything I wanted her to see, Morgan sent the rest. Not to hurt her, but to remind her that the truth has roots. And it doesn't die just because you ignore it. The email contained a short message. He gave you everything. You gave him pieces. I don't want him back, but I won't let him question if he mattered. This isn't vengeance. It's clarity. You don't get to rewrite the ending. Corinne read it. Twice. She forwarded it to herself. Tried deleting it, but it lived in her mind now. An invisible tattoo across her pride. She didn't reply. Couldn't. What would she say? That she was just curious? That it didn't mean anything? That she was coming back to fix things? The truth was, she didn't know how much had unraveled while she was away. She didn't know I had already filed a quiet separation. That the car title was already transferred. That the landlord had agreed to take my name off the lease. That the shared streaming accounts were now all tied to a recovery email she no longer had access to. But more than that, she didn't know how many people knew. Not because I told them, but because they watched her make a fool of a man who had given her the best parts of himself, and they had had enough. She thought betrayal lived in shadows. But it turns out the spotlight can be far more punishing. And she wasn't ready for who'd speak up next. Because it wasn't just Morgan. It was someone she trusted. And that would leave a bruise even I hadn't planned for. 3 days after her return, she finally got the courage to visit her sister. Not to confess. Corinne doesn't confess, she reframes. She tweaks the narrative just enough so the damage doesn't look deliberate. So when she sat across from Lydia, sipping herbal tea and pretending she'd just needed a reset, she was expecting nods, maybe even sympathy. She wasn't expecting Lydia to already know. Not everything, but enough. And she definitely wasn't expecting the question that hit like a sucker punch. How long were you planning to keep pretending you respected him? Corinne blinked. Said nothing. Lydia continued, her voice calm but stripped of its usual sisterly warmth. I've seen the messages, Cor. Silence. The hotel. The other phone. The half-truths. She wasn't guessing. She was reciting. Corinne tried to protest, something about context, about needing space, about it not being serious, but Lydia cut her off with one sentence. You don't accidentally rehearse betrayal. You just get better at hiding it. That was when Corinne understood she'd lost more than just me. She had lost the only person in her family who had ever defended her when she was wrong. Lydia had always been her safety net, the one who cleaned up after her mistakes and painted them as growing pains. But this time, Lydia was on my side. Because she saw the truth for what it was, not a one-time lapse, not a misunderstood connection, but a quiet, systematic unraveling of a man who deserved more. That night, Lydia called me. She didn't say much. Just told me Corinne had stopped pretending. That she looked genuinely stunned. Almost frightened. Like for the first time she realized this wouldn't pass. That she wouldn't talk her way back this time. And Lydia ended the call with a sentence that stayed with me longer than I expected. She thought silence would protect her. But it only gave the truth more time to grow. Corinne didn't message me again. Not that night. Not the next. But I could feel the shift. The panic had started to set in. And she still hadn't discovered the one thing I left behind that would shatter everything she believed she still had. Not yet. But soon. She tore the place apart the next day. Drawers, closets, old shoeboxes, even the attic, which she hadn't stepped into in years. Something had shifted in her. Not guilt. Not regret. Something closer to fear. She knew I had left clues. Not just the obvious ones, the envelope, the video, the messages she couldn't unsee, but something else. Something unfinished. She could feel it like a hairline crack in glass right before it splinters. And she was right. I left her something. It wasn't hidden in a box or behind a mirror. It was in the least sentimental place in the house, the garage. Tucked behind the fuse panel inside a weathered folder labeled Utilities. She probably opened it expecting bills. What she found instead was a copy of a bank transaction dated the day after she left. My full withdrawal. The account closed. A handwritten note clipped to the top corner. You wanted to start over. So I gave you the house to do it. But that wasn't the part that broke her. Attached behind it, almost like an afterthought, was a printed photo. One she'd never seen. It was us. Years ago. A weekend trip up north. Her arms around me. My stupid grin. The kind of photo people frame and forget about. But this one had something added, my handwriting across the bottom. You never needed to be perfect. Just honest. She sat down on the cold garage floor and stared at it. Not crying. Just stuck. She'd spent so long trying to become someone exciting, unpredictable, wanted by others that she forgot how to be real with the person who loved her before all that. And now she was alone. Truly alone. Because the house didn't just feel empty now. It felt like someone else's past. And she wasn't part of the story anymore. It's strange how silence becomes normal. A month passed. Then, too, the world didn't stop spinning. The city lights still blinked in the windows of my new apartment. The barista down the street started remembering my name. My phone stayed quiet, and for the first time in years, that didn't scare me. I didn't block her. But I didn't wait for her either. There were days when her name flashed in my memory, not because I missed her, but because my mind was still rearranging old habits. I'd hear a song and remember the way she used to hum along back when things were still simple. Before the quiet lies. Before new experiences became more important than shared promises. But here's the thing no one tells you, walking away doesn't always feel triumphant. Sometimes it feels like losing a war you never signed up for. But the peace that follows? That's where the real victory lives. I kept moving. I started hiking again, something I hadn't done since we got married. I joined a small writing group. I wrote stories that weren't about betrayal, but about beginnings. I met people who didn't know the old me, the version who folded towels and swallowed disappointment like it was part of his daily routine. And one night, while walking home past the bookstore I now visit every Friday, my phone buzzed. One new message. From her. I hope you're okay. I think about what I threw away every day. I stared at it for a few minutes. No anger. No sadness. Just clarity. I didn't respond. Not because I hated her, I didn't. In some strange, unspoken way, I hoped she had found what she was looking for. Maybe now she understood that freedom wasn't about escaping people who love you, it was about learning how to stand in truth even when it's uncomfortable. As for me, I stood under that streetlight for a while, letting the cold air wrap around me. Then I slipped the phone back in my pocket and smiled. Because I wasn't broken anymore. I was just free.